Hey guys, can you hear me? Can you see me? We have a chat going on here. I see it's going wild. If you want to test the chat, you can say hello or maybe write from which country you're from. See a lot of messages here, which is cool. I'm here in Zurich, Switzerland, where I'm living between the Megadeth tours nowadays. And this is my new home studio here. A little setup with a few camera angles. So I have my side view here, my main view, and the point of view for showing some fretboard action, and also picking hand camera for looking into some picking hand details. I see Argentina, Turkey, Colombia, United States, Finland represented. Nice. Greece, Indonesia, Slovenia, Bangladesh. Wow. Chicago, Canada. Nice. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday to hang out with some guitar stuff. And we have there in the chat also a moderator named Nick Abel. So if you have any technical issues, he will assist you with those. You can also type some questions in the chat. I have already about 100 questions sent beforehand, so we'll pick some questions in the end to answer. And yeah, one very important thing, please stay until the end of the masterclass, because at the end there will be an important announcement that I'll make. So stay until the very end. Let's get started, and I'll give you a brief overview of what we're going to do here on this masterclass. I have some notes on my computer here because there's a bunch of stuff that I want to share with you, and let's say where we go. I kind of still want to keep it kind of spontaneous and not totally by the script. So we have a little bit leeway and possibilities to go a couple different directions. But basically, I want to show you some riffs and solos from the new album, talk about the songwriting and the working in the studio, of course, gear used on the album, some practicing and technique tips, and then we'll do the Q&A session at the end of the masterclass. Now, one important thing, if you want to play along, the tuning that Megadeth uses, and one that I've used already before Megadeth quite a bit, is D standard, meaning normal E standard tuning, but everything is a whole step down. I believe Megadeth started using this tuning already back in 2012. I still, every once in a while, see comments from people like, oh, did they change the tuning for live now? But yeah, that actually happened back in 2012. Why the change to a lower tuning? Well, a couple of reasons. Of course, lower tuning usually means heavier sound, and especially in a live situation, I feel like that translates with the lower, more massive riffs when you have a lower tuning up until a certain point. Of course, then when you go super, super low, then you start to actually lose some of the characteristics of the higher strings as well. Like 8-string guitars has a very different timbre and sound than 6-string guitar tuned just a couple steps down. Another reason why lower tuning and why a lot of bands do this is if you have back catalog of songs recorded a long time ago with some high vocal parts, like in a lot of the Megadeth songs, then maybe you realize that they might be hard to pull off live, and because of that, then you might be forced to skip some songs live because it's hard to sing those highest notes. And by tuning lower, that allows to play those songs, and just the highest notes that you hit will be then lower as well because the tuning is lower. So in a sense, that helps with the vocals as well. All right, so first thing that I want to talk about is riffs, because when I think of Megadeth, the first thing that comes to mind to me is riffs, like great riffs, sometimes more technical, fast, complex riffs, but also sometimes more simple, groovy, catchy riffs. A couple examples of maybe more complex riffs would be something from Hangar 18 or from maybe Holy Wars, and then more simple, groovy, catchy riffs, of course, like a classic like Symphony of Destruction, and many others are actually a little bit more on the kind of simpler side if they are slower riffs. And I think a good starting point here today would be to dive into the ingredients of tipping point intro riff, which I think sits somewhere in between. It has a little bit of technicality in it, but also is kind of a slower riff and a kind of a simple riff in a sense that it's not like there's not super complicated rhythms there, and the structure of the riff is pretty simple. There's basically two rounds to the riff. Let's dive into it. Let me play for you, and then let's break it down. And I'll talk a little bit about the technique, and even like how a riff like this would be put together in terms of composition and also arrangement. So you probably, if you heard the album, you heard this riff. Okay, that's the riff. I was trying to read some of the comments there at the same time. Yeah, so a couple main things that are going on in this riff is some heavy palm muted notes, very traditional metal sound. That's the open A string. And by the way, when I talk about the strings here, I still refer to the string names as if they were in standard tuning. So this is still the high E string to me, although it's actually pitched to a D note because of the lower tuning. So I'm still talking about E string, A string, D string, G string, B string, and E string. So we have the open A string chugging here. And very important to get that tight sound. There's a couple ingredients that I always pay attention to. The spot where you place your hand on the strings for that palm muting plays a huge role in terms of whether you get more kind of boomy sound if you're more towards the bridge compared to totally open, which would be this. So on the bridge, or then more towards the neck, you get more tighter sound like this. Now that starts to get really crispy, so I want to go somewhere in between that boomy and like super crispy spot. So something like that sounds nice. It has enough of that bottom boom, but still stays tight and punchy. So basic palm muting. Then the other ingredient here is being able to go between the palm muting and opening notes. The open notes will be here on the D string. And if you haven't played this sort of technique before, and I know for a lot of people this sounds like super simple, but stay patient. We'll get more into complicated details soon as well. But if you're more of a beginner, you want to really work on your the contrast between the muted notes tight and open notes really open and not like half muted. So you don't want to stay in one position with the picking hand and try to balance between a little bit of muting and a little bit of opening. You want to try to make it really clear cut, super tight muting, and then snappy and clean open notes. So you might just want to take one note on each string and be able to go between the open and mute. Let me give you the picking hand camera so you see the action that's going on here. So I'm going really jumping quite a bit from off the strings with the whole hand when I'm playing the open note, kind of like bouncing the hand away from the strings. And then for the mute, I rest the whole hand on all the strings, even if you're picking just on one string like we usually do, or two strings, but still muting all the strings, making sure there's no extra noise coming from the other strings. So again, besides this, you see also the fretting hand here handling some of the muting. So I make sure that the note doesn't just stay down, but it's kind of a safety net in a way, also making sure that when I'm not playing that melody note, I'm also letting go of it a little bit. So if I didn't mute with the picking hand, now the other strings ring because I don't have the muting here, but the index finger here, by lifting it up a little bit, that actually mutes and shortens that melody note. And if I apply now a little bit of the picking hand also muting, then we get the full clean cuts between the press down note and the mute. And then you add the palm mute. Okay, so then the notes that we're having here, we have the tonality of the riff is kind of like a darker sound, especially this note here. And I don't want to go too deep into theory. I try to keep it more of a practical theory in this session. But this note here against the A, open A note, is especially dissonant sound, like very kind of almost disturbing sound, but it doesn't stay there for too long. But having that note in there kind of make it really kind of evil sound. So let me play the riff a couple more times and then break down the fretting hand action. Okay, so what's going on with the fretting hand is that we're starting with the 5th fret here on the D string, hammering on to the 7th fret. Then we have one mute in between on that A string. Then we do single notes on the 8 and then back to 5. So we have, and I'm doing everything with downstrokes here with the picking hand. And ending on that 7, and then a bunch of muted downstroke. So we have, so that's 8 mutes then after the last 7 pressed down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, but the structure, I said beginning that it has kind of 2 different endings or 2 rounds. But I think of one round is this. That's to me kind of the first round of the riff. And then the second round of the riff is where I slide up and do the different ending. So it has the same beginning but different ending, keeping it more interesting. What's going on that second round is, like I said, starts with the same thing. Hammer on 5, 7, then the 8 to 5 single notes, and then the 7 single note, and then we have 3 mutes, I think, in between. Yeah, 3 mutes at the end, and then we have maybe the most technical part of the riff, which it's not really that technical, but I think this is one of those little details that can really make or break the riff. So what I'm doing there at the end of the second round is I'm sliding up. I'm on the 7th fret position before the slide, and I'm sliding up to the 12th on the D string. So all the melody notes are still on the D string, sliding up to the 12th, and then adding vibrato. Okay, let's slow it down. First off, the slide itself doesn't start really on the 7, so it's not 7 to 12, but it's more of a slide into that 12. What does that mean? It means that the hand moves first, and then the pick strokes happen somewhere along the way. So we get that sound, kind of like a fade in, or in this case, slide in. Instead of picking on the 7 and sliding to 12, instead of that sound, we move the hand first and then pick along the way. A little bit smoother. And then on that 12, it's pretty fast as soon as you land there, then doing a little vibrato. And I try to keep that controlled by acknowledging how many times I bend the string. In this case, it's a very short amount of time that we have there. So I tend to do 2 bends. I bend the string down, and in terms of range, probably about half a step, so about 1 fret of bending, even maybe a little bit less, just enough to add a little bit of a character to the note. And right after those 2 bends, then we go down to the 11th fret and then do the opposite of slide in. Now we do a slide out. We slide down from that 11th fret. So let's put that into action and see how that sounds. I'm using ring finger for the bend. That's usually my default bending finger if I get to choose, depending on the position of the previous thing and the next thing. Ring finger usually allows, in my opinion, the best grip and the strength, because you can use the index finger and middle finger kind of helping also on the string. So you don't want to go just ring finger alone. You could go middle finger and help with the index. But in this case, I like the ring finger because I'm already on the ring finger on the previous note. And that grip is kind of what I'm having in the previous part of the riff anyway. So I'm just sliding up here, and then I'm going down with that 11 on the middle finger. So I just lift up the ring and go. And while doing all this, you want to make sure that you're muting with the picking hand again. So I'm resting the palm, this part of the palm here on the lower strings, and the fretting hand is actually staying here on the higher strings. So I have all the strings covered, the higher strings under the fretting hand, and the lower strings, in this case the low E and A string, are under the picking hand palm here. And this is the type of small things that especially if you find yourself like having some trouble playing clearly, playing clean, these are some of the details that you might want to pay attention to and work on. So again, fairly simple riff on the surface level, but then when you break it down to single movements, that can really make it sounding correct or sounding kind of like in the ballpark. So if you want to make it really tight and sound like the original, those are the tips that I would give for this riff. With that in mind, let's play it a couple more times so you see the whole thing, and I'll give you another angle from here. One more thing I want to point out is in the arrangement, we felt like, because the riff is itself only 2 rounds, so how we kept it more interesting in the song was by adding some drum and bass action that was different from what the guitar is doing. So the drums and bass, they're doing hits on beats 2 and 4 to accent the riff in the beginning, and then a little drum build up into the riff, and then the beat starts. And we have also a harmony part with the other guitar coming in after the first 2 rounds. And the harmony part here is playing so-called third up, so basically 2 notes up from what the main guitar is doing. So same technique, similar fingering, but now we're on these notes. So if you have a friend that you can play along with, or if you just want to play along to the album and also play the harmony part, this is the harmony part. So again, basically same melody, just higher up. Now we're starting here on the 8th fret, hammering up all the way to the 11th fret, and then 12 and 8, 11, and then we have a slide up now up to the 15, and then down from the 14. Same technique, sliding up, slide in, 2 notches for the vibrato, and then sliding back down. Okay, one more thing I want to point out here is the picking velocity. Now, meaning how hard you hit the strings. I talked about the contrast between the muted notes and the open notes, trying to make that as big of a contrast as you can by really tightening the muted notes and then really opening the open notes. But also the dynamics here matter quite a bit. Let me give you an example how you don't want to make the riff sounding. So if I play a little bit loose and not really accented, it might sound something like this. If I also try to play extra sloppy and extra bad muting, it might sound something like this. So I have a lot of string noise there if I do it like that. And it's not really punchy and aggressive. So I try to hit the strings pretty hard, but the way that you're using momentum from your picking hand, not really squeezing the pick too hard. You don't want to really tense up. That's very important, that you stay relaxed, but still try to use the whip from your forearm, hitting that string heavy enough that it really sounds snappy. So if I play without the amp sound here, you hear how those melody notes will pop out, and you will also hear that the muted notes are actually not that loud by themselves. Through the amp, they will sound tight and punchy, but by again contrasting the two and playing them dynamically in a certain way, you can also kind of save some energy instead of having to push very hard through the whole riff. So acoustic sounds like this. So and of course, through the microphone here in the room, you can also hear the string sound acoustically when I'm playing with the amp. But I just wanted to demonstrate that, like, how you hit the strings actually makes a huge difference how the riff is perceived, whether it feels like, okay, the notes are there, but it's not really tight and aggressive, or then if you can really get those details down, hit the strings hard, then it really comes alive, in my opinion. one more time, the picking hand camera, you see that I do pretty big range of motion. I try not to do tiny movements, even when the riff is slow. Same if it's fast, I try to still do pretty big motions, but in this riff, it looks like this. So if I were to pause that camera, then you would probably see my pick going all the way in the air this far and then landing down on those strings. And of course, this requires a little bit more coordination, a little bit more confidence to be able to hit the right string from further away and hit the right string and at the right time. But that's something you want to work towards instead of like trying to play too small. That usually results also in lower volume, but I think also less character if you play too small, especially in a heavy riff like this. There's time and place for different techniques. I think there's no one correct way to play anything, but this is the way that this riff was originally meant to be played, and that's how you could also get it down to that sound. Cool. So then let's take a look at the comments here. Amp settings. Yeah, we'll talk about the gear in a moment. Somebody says about frets. Yeah, I'll talk about guitar as well. The specs on this guitar and some of my other guitars. Somebody liked hearing it acoustic. Yeah, I think that's something I've done a lot in the past with my students as well. When I've taught, I started teaching when I was 19, so it's been now about 20 years of teaching. First in person in Finland. My first teaching gig was subbing for a friend of mine at kids like summer camp, and then kids were probably like between 8 and 12. Younger kids, and it was fun to do. It was my real first time teaching, and then after the camp, a lot of the kids asked me, like, could I also teach them privately after the camp? And that's kind of how it started. And then the word went around, and soon I was teaching pretty much full time between the tours in my early 20s. And since then, I've always done it when I have time, and I always enjoyed teaching because it also kind of allows me to have different perspective, looking into somebody else's issues and problems and struggles, and helping them find the solution. That often also opens new perspectives to my own playing as well, because there might be something that I didn't think of in my own playing, but when I see somebody else doing it, I realize that, oh, this is something I can actually apply or develop in my own playing as well. So that's why I really like doing teaching, and I hope that seeing this, if you haven't seen me teaching before, I hope that also becomes clear with this session. I was going to say that, I've taught a lot then in Skype and Zoom over the years, and now since being in Megadeth, now going on soon 3 years, I really haven't had much time to put together a system where I would be able to teach and concentrate on the Megadeth work, and then also, of course, when I'm back home, then also have some dedicated time for the family as well. But stay until the end, and I will tell a little bit more about what's gonna come later in terms of teaching. But yeah, I was gonna say that the acoustic sound, that's something I've used quite a bit in teaching picking to my previous students, and really working in detail on dynamics, which I think is a really overlooked subject in terms of picking, and can be a huge thing in terms of picking speed, picking precision, and just overall picking confidence. Okay, So then let's move on to the next thing here on my list. I'll take a peek at the comments here every once in a while. Let's see what we have. Hi from Norway. Hi back. Best song on the album. Really hard to just point out one, but I think Let There Be Shred is probably one of my favorites at the moment. Do you know how to read music? Yeah, I know basics of reading music. I wouldn't say I'm great at sight reading, but there's been periods in my life where I had to do more sight readings when I was playing in the military band in Finland for about half a year. I had to do that, and then I did one theater gig where I had to do a lot of sight reading. So back then my sight reading was really good. Since then, playing in bands, you don't really need much sight reading, especially playing in metal bands. More gear questions, we'll get to that soon. Yeah, so many comments. Thanks guys for being active and sharing your thoughts and comments. That's cool. So I wanted to talk about how the new Megadeth album came about in terms of like composition of the songs. And if you've watched some of our interviews, you've probably heard that we did this thing where we listened to all the Megadeth catalog together. The whole band sat down, separate different sessions, a few sessions where we went like maybe 10 or 20 songs at the time. First we did this on tour, and then we did it later in Zoom meetings as well. But we listened to every song that Megadeth has ever released, including cover songs and bonus tracks. And we made notes on an Excel sheet. And Dave told us about stories like how the songs originally came to be, what was the inspiration maybe to the lyrics, what were maybe some of the special nuances in certain songs, and we really paid attention to arrangements, to certain vibes between different albums, and this gave us a really good understanding of what would work as the next album for Megadeth, what we wanted to kind of make the new songs sound like. So this was way before we started really putting anything together in terms of riffs. Though about a year before this, Dave had already told me and the guys that we might be going to the studio at some point. So if you have some ideas, start saving them on your phone, and so I pretty much started doing that right away. So then by the time we went to the studio end of 2024, then I had so many riffs already in my phone that I knew that they all won't be able to be used on this album. Probably like, I think something like 140 riffs, very rough idea somewhere, like just a short idea to be then developed later somewhere just me like 2 minutes of jamming some idea backstage or in the hotel room. But I saved them all, and then when we actually then entered the studio, then I started kind of cutting them down to the ones that could possibly work for a Megadeth album. And then I made like a little bit better version of these rough demos by recording them properly, like doing a stereo recording 2 tracks and just making it a little bit easier to listen to. And then we started putting everything in Dropbox folders. Everybody from the band contributed, and we put folders like based on tempos, based on styles. So we had a bunch of like starting points for possible songs. And then pretty soon after that, when we got to the studio all together, we just started jamming. And sometimes that was the whole band together in the same room. Sometimes that was me and Dirk just kind of improvising. Sometimes that was me and Dave on the couch playing acoustic guitars. And this is how a lot of the core ideas also came about. Sometimes we would take a riff from the Dropbox folder and then start playing it together and realize that, okay, it needs to go in this direction, or it needs a certain transition or a certain drum part that fits great here, and then maybe that inspired us to go in a totally different way that we had taught before. While doing all this, we had our producer Chris Rakestraw on the computer and recording everything. So all the whole setup that we jammed with, including full live drums, our live guitar rigs, the bass rigs, microphones, everything was wired in the way that we could just jam and everything would record all time. So we had probably like hours and hours of jamming material that we never really went back and went through everything, because whenever we hit the good idea, then we would stop, or maybe Chris would raise his hand or say to the talkback mic that, okay guys, that sounded great, come and listen to this. And then we would talk together and talk about the arrangement, where this could go. And that way, again, we got a lot of parts to the songs by doing it kind of intuitively, by improvising, by just jamming, trying to get in a kind of flow, where you don't think about it too much. You don't try to play it perfectly. You kind of like almost kind of like wing it. You jam together. Of course, you don't try to play wrong notes or anything like that, but at the same time you don't want to be too worried about making mistakes at that point, because this is just about like building the character of the riff or the vibe of the song. And then that was kind of the initial part of the writing process, having those Dropbox riff ideas, and then the jamming part, and then kind of putting some of those ideas together. Then after a while, we started having like these skeletons for songs, and at that point we did then a little bit more proper demo recording of those songs. So we would actually then re-record the drums in the studio, in our jamming spot of the studio, and then re-record the guitars a little bit better, re-record the bass a little bit better, and get kind of a good basic track for a song. And then it would be easier for us to kind of see about the arrangement. Okay, how many times do we want to do this part? How about if we move this part here in the song, or how about we extend this part? Things like that. Also, this allowed then, when everything was recorded a little bit tighter, this allowed us to try different tempo changes and try different rhythmic ideas, because when you have then everything more tight in the grid in your recording program, then everything is easier to move around in that demo demo session. And after that, then once we had the demos and the structure more or less, sometimes there would be some parts that had vocals in there. Sometimes we would have demo solos in there. I think for most of the songs we had some kind of demo solo. And then once the structures were pretty much clear, then we started laying the actual tracks. And at some point we were talking about trying to do more of a live vibe in the studio, kind of like how Euthanasia album was recorded, mostly live tracks, the band playing together. We kind of wanted to catch that vibe because of the jamming that we had done to write the songs, and at that point we had already played quite a bit live together, and that we felt like we were really tied together. So we wanted to really make sure that the album has that band sound. But due to the logistics, we then decided in the end that, okay, drums are going to be recorded in LA where Dirk lives, and then the rest of the recordings happened in Nashville, where we had the main studio in our management's headquarters. But we kept in mind at all times trying to preserve as much as possible of this band sound. And one funny thing that I've seen some comments about is like, why are the drums or guitars, why are they so edited and so machine sounding? But actually, it's funny because when you look at the drum takes, for example, there's like 1 or 2 cuts in the song. That means that Dirk played it maybe 3 times, and then we selected this part of the song for this, or this take for this part of the song, and another take maybe for another part. So there's very little cuts, actually, nearly no editing in drums. But because Dirk is such a tight player and amazing drummer, it sounds kind of like, to some people it might sound like this must be edited, or this must be like, MIDI drums, because it's just played so good. So I've been joking about it in a couple of interviews that you shouldn't play that good, because people will think that it's not real. But yeah, I think we were able to keep a lot of that character, our band sound, on the album, and yeah, I think we did a good job getting tight performances while recording, but still like not editing too much, and also our producer Chris was on the same page, like trying to go more like raw but punchy, raw but aggressive sound, and also our mixing guy Matt Hyde, I think he did a great job also bringing all those sounds alive in the end. Okay, so now we get to the gear part that everybody has been asking in the chat. So how did we get those sounds? Seeing the comments again here. Dirk is insane. I know Dirk is absolutely amazing. Such a pleasure to play with all these guys. James's bass, I mean, he has such a history playing with some of the biggest names in the industry, and so much experience. Like having him in the studio, he's kind of like that wise voice in the background for a lot of the things that we do, and hearing his wisdom on a lot of the arrangements, that was really cool. And Dave, of course, his experience is like so vast. 40 years of Megadeth, 24/7, breathing and living in the band, and all the albums that the band has done before. I was just super happy, and I would say also surprised how much us, the band guys, got to be involved on the recording and the production of this album. And I was really happily surprised and super excited that I got to co-write so much with the guys, and especially with Dave, and also where I was able to offer some of my production knowledge, like with tweaking the guitar sounds and things like that. So that was really cool experience overall in the studio. Okay, so now the gear. I had a bunch of guitars in the studio. The studio time was kind of a transition period for me, because I had a lot of my old Ibanez guitars in the studio, the ones that I played first with Megadeth when I started playing with the band. Guitars like this, customized by my good friend Kaur Kukkur in Estonia. So I had many of these, some with the floating bridge, some with the Evertune bridge, which we actually also used quite a bit for tracking some of the rhythm guitars, just because it's very convenient and keeps the guitar perfectly in tune, so saves time in studio. You might have seen this guitar. Now it's actually missing a bridge pickup and needs a setup, but this guitar I played a lot. Solar Guitars were nice enough to send me actually multiple guitars, and this was one of my favorites that I played a lot when we were demoing the songs initially with the Evertune bridge. Here's a guitar that I think not many people have seen before, unless you were in the studio with us. This is a Jackson, kind of a prototype guitar that they sent me. I got to choose my specs here. So it's a nice neck through guitar with the roasted maple neck and 27 frets with some scallops here on the last 7 frets. And this was a guitar that I also used quite a bit when working on the solos for the album. And then, of course, there was the transition to Gibson. So I got a bunch of guitars from Gibson, these custom Explorers, also my own spec in a way that has a little bit smaller body. Explorer Pro has also this same body shape, 24 frets and a little bit sculpted heel. Of course, reversed headstock, which I always loved. Floating bridge. This particular guitar has an amazing bridge from a Turkish company called Hantug. This is a titanium bridge, so super lightweight, super stable, has a few features that my tech loves when he sets up my guitar. Also, the nut here is adjustable nut by Hantug. Definitely check them out if you're into like super high-end gear and modifications in your guitars. So I used some Explorers, some of these guitars on the album. I also used some Les Pauls like this. This is a custom shop R9 Murphy Lab heavy relic, which I always loved, like that it really looks like vintage and everything. All these things are like really well done, basically copied from a real 59 guitar from 1959. And for example, the neck, I always loved that it has a kind of a smoother feel with the lacquer kind of scraped off. So these guitars I played for some parts. And why so many guitars? Because each guitar has a different sound and a different feel and vibe as well. For me in the studio, it's important that, you know, have these different tools and different options. So if you're working on something and you realize that, okay, you're not happy with how this riff sounds, or you're not feeling inspired, then you can always take another guitar and see where that leads you. Maybe because it sounds slightly different, that will you know, push you in a different direction. Or even in case of like Les Paul, it's such a different tool in my opinion that it kind of, at least for me, it's kind of the way that the guitar speaks when you play. It makes you play different things totally, because Les Paul to me, it feels more like a bluesy guitar. Of course, you can play a lot of heavy stuff with the Les Paul as well, but especially like this, which is more vintage vibe guitar, then this is something I would use maybe for more melodic part or slower part, or more like a bendy solo or something like that. Not necessarily the most shreddy part. Pickups. Mainly used a couple of pickups on this album. Seymour Duncans in pretty much all the guitars. I think we tried a couple of my old Fishmans and DiMarcios in some of my older guitars, but pretty much Seymour Duncans here. And in my live guitars now, I have Alternative 8 is the main bridge pickup. And on the album, I also did bunch of tracks with the Crazy 8. So the 8 magnet is something I've really grown fond of lately, and let's see, hopefully there will be something that we can develop together with the Seymour Duncan at some point. So that's a quick overview of the guitar. So a bunch more guitars. This is just some of my guitars here and a bunch of my guitars are still in Nashville in storage or in the band's live rigs. We have a couple different rigs traveling in different parts of the world. So because of that, you also need to have multiple guitars. String gauge, good question there. Using the Dario strings for a long time now. I've really fallen in love with their NYXL strings. The stability and the sound of the NYXL strings. They are really bright strings, which I really love for that spanky sound and kind of precise, clean tone. I've also lately been testing these new Dario XS strings, which are kind of a coded version of the NYXL, which I now played live for a little bit, and I'm not sure yet which one is my favorite. Both have kind of their different features. The NYXL is maybe still a little bit brighter. The XS, because of the coding, lasts a little bit longer. So I kind of do like that as well. They have a little bit different feel as well, because although the coding that Dario does is very subtle, you can still feel it a little bit in the fingers. So that has taken me a little bit of time to get used to. And now I'm kind of deciding whether I'm going to stick to the NYXL or the XS. But both are definitely amazing string sets. I don't think I've ever broken a string with either of these sets, which with the previous strings that I used to play, I would every once in a while break a string. And also my tech, Keaton, who takes great care of my guitars, he tells me that both the NYXL and the XS, they stay in tune super well. And when he sets up new strings in the guitar, he doesn't need much time to stretch the strings to kind of settle. In terms of gauge, so again, the tuning is D standard tuning in all the guitars live. And the string gauge is 10 to 52, which is, you could say that's kind of lighter top and thinner strings and kind of thicker side lower strings, which I kind of like, that tighter, heavier vibe feel on the lower strings for tight riffing, and then a little bit more looser feel for the high notes that you want to bend. And besides this, I also always switch my highest string, the high E string, to 1 gauge lower. So it's not 10. I actually used 9.5 in the studio, and in the past couple of years, I used 9.5. But now I'm actually going even to 9 and trying how the 9 is feeling. So that's maybe something you want to test as well. Like if you have a string set that you like, but maybe one of the strings is not feeling great in your fingers, you can always order separate single strings and switch that and see how that feels. And in fact, the Dario nowadays also does like custom sets. You can customize your own string gauges and order customized set just for you. What else? Guitar picks. Let's see, what is the best camera for showing this? Dunlop. This is Dunlop Altex Sharp 1.0 millimeter. I've used these picks for probably soon 15 years, something like that, since they came out. And a couple things why I love these picks is they have the sharper tip. They are also beveled on the side. That might be hard to see, but meaning that if you look with the microscope, the edge of the pick is not like a rectangle like this, like in most picks would be. Like in comparison, maybe this pick here, hard to see. This pick is actually thinner than this pick, but it kind of looks bulkier. But yeah, this is basically a rectangle edge. I'm keeping some of these picks kind of like as a throwaway pick, and also throwaway as a live that I throw in the audience, but also because they show better in the picking camera. So if I'm doing something like showing the picking angles, that green pick is much easier to see than this see-through amber pick. But this material, the Altex material, I love the sound. It's really aggressive sounding, really clear sounding material, and the tip again being precise, and with the bevels on the side, it's kind of like it was sharpened in a way. So again, a little bit extra precision in those fast and technical picking parts. I like the 1 millimeter thickness because that's still a little bit of flexibility in the pick, but it still has that snappy sound. If you go too thin, I feel like then you start to lose some of the precision, and if you go too thick, I feel like then you start to lose some of that tight attack in the tone. So that's the pick that I've been playing for a long time, and that's my favorite. You can get these in any stores without my print, but it just says Dunlop Altex Sharp 1.0. It's basically the same pick, but just with my print. Okay, let's see. Some more questions. Amps, of course. Let's talk about amps. So here, this guy, Lens amp, made by my buddy Eddie Lenz in Germany, kind of a mad scientist of amp building. He makes these great custom amps, and I discovered him a few years ago first. I think Jeff Loomis actually introduced him to me, and Jeff had some amps from Eddie, and then I contacted Eddie, and then he came to one of the Megadeth shows and brought his amps backstage, and we tested them, and I loved them right away. And then I think at that point Eddie had already taken one of his circuits, his designs, original designs, and modified it a bit to what he thought might be to my liking, and it definitely was. And then so when we went to the studio, we had the possibility to basically take any gear that we want in the studio. So I asked Eddie if he could send us a couple of his amps, and he was kind enough to do that, and he then modified that circuit even a little bit more. And this is actually that I'm trying to point to the right direction. This amp here is that actual amp that I used mostly in the studio. It's something that we've been working on together, and maybe at some point in one form or another it will be available to the public as well. But it's an amazingly tight sounding kind of Marshall 800-ish type of amp with a few more tricks in the sleeve, so it can do really tight rhythm in that Megadeth realm, but also like soaring smooth leads. So yeah, that was one of the key elements for sure for me on this album. Other than that, I did use quite a bit of my trusty old Quad Cortex, Neural DSP Quad Cortex here, and especially when recording the demos, and even on the album, some I think some lead tracks ended up being reamped through our live presets on the Quad Cortex. And what I'm playing today, by the way, is also that amp in the back, the Lens amp captured in the studio to the Quad Cortex. So but you're hearing it through an active cabinet here in my room, so you hear a little bit more of the room sound, but what you're really hearing is the actual amp that is on the album as well. So Quad Cortex is our trusted live tool for everything, really. It's an amazing device. And otherwise in the studio, Mike Fortin also sent me one of his amps. I had previously had one of his Meshuggah amps, and that I bought from him many years ago, and loved that amp. And I still have that amp back in Finland, and it's an amp that gets often rented out for studio sessions, and producers seem to really love that amp. So Mike was again kind enough to send me that amp. He first was trying to source one of his like, I think he didn't have any in stock, but he checked if he has any, and then he said that he's going to send me one of his own amps. But then in the end, he actually put together a new amp for me. It was a limited amount of amps that he did with this circuit, and he made one for me, and it has a serial number Teemu something, which is super cool. Love Meshuggah, and really love the gear that they've done together with 14 as well, which is another, of course, amazing amp and tone guru, another mad scientist, if you will. Another 14 piece that we used all over the tracks in everything. I think we had the 14 Zool Plus gate, which is an amazingly tight, precise gate for tight rhythm guitars, but also we kept it on pretty much for everything, because you can adjust it easily to cut only when you need it to cut. So if you need a gate with your setup, then definitely suggesting to check out the Zool Plus from 14. What else? We had quite a few other amps, some classic Marshalls, JCM 800, JVM, Joe Satriani model. We had Mesabuki 2C Plus, the new reissue. We had some Synergy amps, some of their modules, like the Friedman B Deluxe module that we ended up using for a couple things as well. What else? We had also Bogner, and we had a PV amp, but not sure if we ended up really using those much. Oh, we had also ADA MP1, legendary rack preamp from the 80s, that I think we ended up using with the chorus presets for one or two things as well. We had also big collection of pedals in the studio. Maybe you've seen the pedal wall that our producer Chris put together with the MIDI switching, like, I don't know, 30 pedals, and everything was hooked up that we could like mix and match the pedal with the specific amp, which we did. We did a lot of this tone chasing, where we would like test a certain part with an amp and then try all the pedals, like which boost works the best with that certain amp, and then we would label them and make presets in the MIDI switching that, okay, this amp and this pedal are a good match, and this amp and this pedal are a good match. So then later we could just like select, okay, we want to have this sound for this riff, or this sound for this riff. In terms of pedals, we had a bunch of different variations of different tube screamers. Some of them I have here. Again, 14 modded TS9. I think we ended up using that here and there. Some of the classic tube screamers. I have a couple old ones here, which we didn't have in the studio, but what we did have was the new hand-wired version and the Overdrive Pro, and also the 14 pedal, which has like two different channels of different kind of tube screamer flavors. I think with the flip switch, you have like three different circuits that you can choose for each channel. So that was a cool pedal to have as well. Clone was there. And yeah, we had some classic Boss pedals as well in there. If you check out some of the studio photos, I think there's a good photo somewhere where you can see all the pedals. What else in terms of gear? Let me see. Do I have here in my notes something that I missed? I think that's more or less comprehensive, quick overview of the gear used. Oh, acoustics. Taylor acoustics, Gibson acoustics were used in the songwriting and recording, and I had my Godin nylon string acoustics in there as well. A funny little thing. I think I didn't mention this yet anywhere, but there was I wrote a couple nylon string parts with that in mind, that I could play live also some nylon string guitar. And at one point, the song "Hey God" actually had a little nylon string intro in there, which we then ended up cutting pretty early on. But that would have been kind of fun to play live there. But now, lately, I was able to sneak in my nylon string to the live set by playing that Eastern sounding part in Holy Wars with the actual nylon string, like it is on the album. So I'm happy that I can play a bit of nylon live as well, and steel string for at least Toulamont for now. Okay, let's see. I think that covers the main guitar gear used for the album. Let's see where we are. Full collection of Tube Screamers. This is a very partial collection. There's so many out there, and some are very different sounding. Some are very similar sounding, but sometimes it just needs a little something to work then with a certain amp. Then that's why it's nice to have like these options. Sometimes you hook up a pedal and it sounds right away, and sometimes you have to search a little bit more to find the good match. Okay, let's see. Somebody asks, am I active in TikTok? No, I have TikTok channel, but I think I've only posted a few things there. That's something I'm considering trying to do a little bit more, because I think there's a lot of people there who would like to see content, but I'm currently focusing more on Instagram and Facebook, and try to also get my YouTube channel going. Let's see. Play Tipping Point solo. Okay, let's look into that. So we have this. So let's talk a little bit about that. I had that on my agenda as well. That happens to be the first solo from me on the album. And when we were working on this song, we didn't really know if it's going to be the first track or the lead single of the album. But I think this was one of the first like completed solos on the album, when we had those demo solos first, and then we started doing the final versions. Some of the solos stayed more or less true to the demo version, which was sometimes first pretty improvised and sometimes like more composed, put together. And this solo, I remember first kind of improvising in the studio, and it was slightly different, I think, and then I worked out a couple things to make it flow a little bit more, and that's how it came together. But we could break it down in detail, which I actually did with one student just about a week ago. One of my old students, I met him backstage in Canada, and we looked a little bit into this solo. So I'm excited to do that again and look in detail kind of what the solo consists of. Like I said again, when I have that opportunity to show and explain something that I'm doing, it kind of opens sometimes my own eyes in a different way as well. Because when you're practicing the songs and even recording and working in the studio, sometimes you don't need to overanalyze. Sometimes it can be really intuitive and using your ears and not really worrying too much about technique or too much about theory or anything like that. And sometimes then again, it's good to be able to kind of reverse engineer things, being able to point out that, okay, to be able to play this in a certain way to get a certain sound, you need to do this or you need to do that. And having these tools in your vocabulary is, I think, the more tools you have, then the more you can express freely. So let's take a close microscope type of look into this solo, what it consists of, and how it could be worked out to your playing as well. So first thing, when I'm thinking about playing something in a solo, is what is the backing? What is going on behind the solo? And in this one, we have basically a kind of a chromatic sounding riff, kind of static sounding riff, this one. Which I remember that in the demo, it was just like that. It didn't have the stops originally. And I was just playing the first run over the rhythm guitar, doing that picking as well. And then later on, we figured out, okay, maybe it needs the stops in there to kind of make it, let the solo stand out a little bit more. So then it became this. So what that is, and when I'm analyzing the solo backing, I'm really interested in the tonal center, which in this case is E, and then the scale. In terms of this one, like I said, this has some chromatic notes, these guys here. So that can be kind of limiting sometimes if you have a lot of chromatic notes in there in terms of what you can play over that. But in this case, because those notes happen so fast, they kind of go by in the background and they're not really limiting you to play a certain harmony, I feel like. And then in the end, you have these open chords there, this F chord going to the G chord, which then allows kind of a more of a melodic part. And then one final thing here is the transition out from the solo. Then we have kind of a key change, not really, but we go to more A part here with the verse, which goes to. Yeah, and the chorus really goes to stay on that A even more. So I would say that the key is really A here, but the E is kind of like the dominant sound. And again, I don't want to go too much into detail with the theory here, but based on E, and then we have like these again kind of darker notes together with the E. That kind of work there, and I kind of just figure out by ear usually like what are the sounds and the characteristics that I want to get there. Or you could go through the theory point and kind of think that, okay, this E kind of dominant sound, E7 or so, you could play a harmonic minor. Which then sounds like with the E. That kind of classic metal tense sound, you could say. But in this case, I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more stand out or a little bit more special. and I figured out that these notes sounded cool. Which happen to be kind of like a melodic minor over E, or you could say that if you base it on E, you could say that's E Mixolydian flat 6. That sort of sound. Let me break down this fingering for you in the position that I played. So I played here on the starting on the 8th fret and low E string. We have 8, 10, 12. Then we have 9, 11, 12. Which if you've worked out your basic natural minor and major scales, you will notice that this is not a fingering that you normally encounter. And then another kind of twist here, you have 9, 10, 12, another fingering that is not in your normal minor or major scales. Then on the G string, you have 9, 11, 13. So a little bit bigger stretch. Now we have and then basically the scale goes on the B string 10, 12, 13. But here what I do is in preparation for the next part, I actually just play 2 notes on the B string and then jump. Instead of going to the 13, I have the same note here on the 8th fret of the high E string, and then I play again same frets as on the first low E string. I have here 8, 10, 12. So the whole scale, 3 note per string for every other string besides the B string, which has 2 notes. So the whole thing sounds like this. And to practice this first to the muscle memory and to your ear, I would just go back and forth in the scale, even if it's not something that happens in the actual solo. I would just practice it by playing up and down. So that's the sound. Now, to get this up to speed, we're playing 16th notes. It's quite fast tempo, so that can be challenging. I would first work out the fretting hand alone, maybe picking just the first note on each string. Try to get this. And then adding the picking hand. Now there's a couple of specific things that are important here with your picking. To be able to play a line like that, flat, fast and precise, you want to be aware of what escaping is, what pick escapes are. And what pick escapes are is when you pick a string and your pick comes away from this. If you think the strings are here kind of one line, so you can be either inside the line with your pick like this one here, or you can be outside of that line, which would be this. And escape is when you come from inside to the outside of the string, and that can be either a downstroke or an upstroke, as long as you're really escaping the string. Both can work. And why is this important? Where does it apply? Where it does not apply is when you play on a single string. It doesn't really matter whether you're escaping, because you're just kind of locked into one string. But as soon as you're gonna change to the next string, you want to make sure that the last note on that previous string is escaping, because if you're not escaping, then you might have hard time getting to the next string. Unless you use, I mean, there's a couple workarounds here. If you use economy picking or sweep picking, then you don't need to escape. But in this case, I like to use alternate picking for that tight rhythm and percussiveness, and keeping the downstrokes on the accents. So what my picking hand looks like when I'm playing something like this, I'm going to play the same line but a little bit lower, so you can, or maybe I can, yeah, I'll do this so you can see the picking hand. Some more of this acoustic sound for those acoustic sound enthusiasts. So you see that I'm working kind of around the strings here with my pick and with my wrist to do some of those escapes, and this would be a topic for a whole different lesson and a longer topic, but I can point you out to really great source of picking information and analysis, a guy called Troy Crady. In YouTube, you will find his channel under Cracking the Code. I've also done a couple interviews with him in terms of like specific picking mechanics, but he has really great material. He has done amazing work analyzing some elite players and their picking hand motions, and a lot of the vocabulary that nowadays is used about picking motions is actually invented by Troy. So if you're interested in guitar technique in any form, I would definitely recommend checking out Troy's page and material. But now going back to the picking hand, just a brief analysis what is happening here. So I'm starting on a downstroke. That's usually my default. If I can, I like to put the downstroke on a beat. And then I'm alternating, so it's every pick stroke is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, no matter how many notes I'm playing per string here. And in terms of escapes, now, if I had my pick flat like this, and I'll try to do a brief demonstration of this. If I had my pick flat, let's say if I'm playing on the A string, now I would be trapped on both sides of the string. There's no escape happening here, but my default pick position is more of this angle. You could call this a downward slanting angle. So the back of the pick is pointing downward instead of upward. So downward picking downward slanting angle, which means that then your downstrokes are kind of directed more to be trapped inside the strings, and then your upstrokes are kind of doing an automatic escape from the strings, if that makes sense, because you're not picking like this between the strings. You're kind of going in and out like this, and this is achieved by having a certain hand position on the strings, going a little bit lower, and also how you hold the pick. So I tend to then adjust my grip a little bit depending on whether I want to go more downward slanting or sometimes more upward slanting. So in this case, I'm using both slants, and in most cases you would kind of need to have multiple kind of escape strategies or picking strategies to be able to play different things, or then adjust your fingering to be able to use maybe more simplified picking technique. But here, how I'm doing this is I'm doing escape on that third note on the first string. So I'm pushing the pick now away to be able then to jump around and go under the A string. And that's why when I'm playing a little bit faster, you see some of this kind of working around the strings. So my default position stays with this downward slant, and then when I need to end the string on a downstroke, like in this case, I don't want to go here, because from here, let's take that green pick that I talked about. So from here, I would be kind of trapped and would have a hard time going under the A string. So if I go like this, then it might seem like a big movement and a kind of a workaround by itself. But once you get comfortable with this, it can really become intuitive and super useful for fast runs to be able to play those cleanly. So then basically from D string to G string, the same thing repeats. We're starting on a downstroke on the D, hopping over or escaping the G string to be able to go under it. A great way, by the way, to kind of clean up your playing and be honest about your position is listening like this acoustically, because you can really hear the attack and whether it's clean or not. With the amp. Okay, so then we have the B string, which had the 2 notes in it. And because we don't end with the downstroke, I can just keep the same default downward slanting angle here. And then the high E string, we don't need to escape anything because we're already at the end of the string. So basically we need those 2 escape motions through this whole pattern here. 1, 2. And another thing that I want to point out here is the important the fretting hand muting, the importance of the fretting hand muting. So what I want to focus on here with the fretting hand is, of course, muting all the higher strings that I'm not playing. But as soon as I get to the A string, I want to also mute the one lower string with the tip of the index finger here. So I'm not landing here where the low E would be exposed, but I'm landing like right under it. So a little bit lower part on the fingertip here for the index finger alone. So then that mutes also the lower string like this, instead of which could expose then the low E. Of course, you could try to mute with your picking hand as well, but if you're playing on the A string and you're trying to mute the E string with your palm, that's going to be tricky and you might miss the muting sometimes. So it's good to have that backup muting with the index finger here. So index is really the main muting finger here on the fretting hand. It's muting the higher strings, and you can do anything with these other fingers that don't need to be muting so much. And besides the higher strings, it's also muting the one lower string. When you go to the next string, you do the same. You mute the one lower string and the higher strings. And by this time, then the lower strings that would be exposed would be then under your picking hand here. Okay, so that's another topic that I'm very fond of discussing with students, to cleaning up your muting and string changes and there's much more tricks to that as well, but stay until the end of the masterclass, and there will be some more to talk about that as well. Okay, let's play that whole line one more time. One more thing I want to point out about the muting here, besides the picking hand, besides the fretting hand, I'm also palm muting quite a bit to make that punchy sound. So the lowest strings, I tend to palm mute pretty much everything. And then when I get to D string or so here, I start to open a little bit, and I don't want to mute everything, because then it would sound too choked. If I mute everything with the palm, it sounds like this, which is also kind of cool sound, but here I kind of wanted to make a kind of like an opening filter or kind of fading in type of sound, from really tight to more open, like that. Okay, that's the first section of the solo. I'm going to break it down here for 4 sections, and I realize we're already running like at the 90 minutes into this masterclass. So let's bump up the speed and get this one done, and then still do a little bit of the Q&A and then continue another time. So next section of the solo here is this augmented arpeggios. 3-string sweeps. I'm going to switch back to my main pick here. And what I'm doing here is I'm picking the 12 on the high E, pulling off to the 8, Then I'm rolling the middle finger here on the 9th fret, G and B and G strings, and going back, and then in the end repeating that pull off. In terms of picking hand, I'm going upstroke on the first note, and actually downstroke on the very first note of the section because we end on the downstroke. That's a downstroke where the next lick starts. But if I were to repeat this lick on a loop, which is what I usually do to practice things, try to make little loops out of them, then I would start the very first note on the downstroke, but then every repetition of that first note would be on a downstroke because the one note before that is already a downstroke, and you want to avoid the double downstroke in fast tempos. So it would end up being like this: down, pull off, up, and then row of 3 downstrokes, down, 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 and then on the next repetition, the first note would be an up, up, pull off, up, down, down, down. So again, down, pull off, up, down, 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 up, pull off, up, down, down, down. So let's get a better angle for that. Again, kind of partial muting here. I'm doing muting on the G and B strings, and then opening on the E string. And I try to keep the pick more or less in a consistent angle, like that. A fun little loop here, instead of getting bored just with one, is take that one and the next one, which is the identical shape, but just going up 4 frets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, up to the 16, and then you have 16, 12, and rolling on the 13s. Otherwise, exactly the same shape. So then between these two augmented shapes, you have and augmented is fun in terms of transitions and inversions, because it's symmetrical, so you can move this shape even further than to other positions here. But it's exact same shape, just always 4 frets apart. But in this particular solo, we're only playing 2 of them. So like that. And then the next part, I would call this the section 3 of the solo, is a climb up on the high E string, kind of playing groups of 4. Now going into more harmonic minor realm. And we have here 17, 13, 16, 17. Just alternate picking, starting on a downstroke. Then next position would be 19, 16, 17, 19. Groups of 4. And one more, let's see, 2 more. So the next one is 20, 17, 19, 20. And the last one would be 20, 19, 22, 19, 20, 22. And I kind of shift the fingering here a little bit. I'm starting with the pinky index ring. And then I go pinky on the 19, index on the 16, middle on the 17. But then when I go back to 19, I actually shift to ring finger, which might seem odd, but this allows me to then keep this fingering sliding to the next position, where I feel like if I went with the pinky there, then I feel kind of like very crowded, especially when playing live and having the guitar low down. Then you need all the extra reach and access that you can get. So that's why this fingering is what I use. That's the climbing scale. And then next section would be, or I guess the extent of this section would be a couple bends, where I try to make it sound more like aggressive. So that first one is 22 bend. That's a whole step up, so that note. And then I bring it down, and then I play this tritone sound here. Really dissonant sound. With the little vibrato at the end. Then I catch the 22 again, but in this case I'm going first bending the whole step up and then bending an extra half step, so 1.5 step. And then the kind of special thing of this solo, in my opinion, is this technique where you're now bent up and you catch another string under your finger, and you get that really dissonant sound, kind of a wrong note, kind of Stevie Ray type of bluesy, really gritty sound. And then you bring that down. And then I'm going into this 18-17 to bring that down. Let's see. Okay, there was a couple lead notes before the second bend. Like that. And then it almost sounds like there's some floating bridge trickery used there, but actually no, it's just a bending. And then the next section would be this walking down the E augmented scale like this. That's a pull off 16. What is that? 20, 16 to 17 on the beat, and then 21 to 17 on the beat, and 17 on the G. I'm picking down, pull off, up, down, pull off, up, and one more. Okay, so first one is actually 20, 16, 17, 19, 16, 17. So I'm doing 2 patterns there. Then going up the augmented shape here, which would be here 18, 17, 17, 16 into 19 on the high E. And then finishing off with a little bit more melodic part. Excuse me. Finishing off with a little bit melodic part, more melodic part when the F comes in the backing. I'm going here kind of a F major shape. But starting on the B string, I go down. That's a sweep. That's 18, 17, 19, 20, and then back up with the same note. 17 on the high E, and then finishing off the whole thing with the little melodic bend part. That's 20. Whole step, back down, 19, and then up on the 20. Okay, one more time the whole solo. Let's do a different angle for you guys. And one more thing to point out is the expression and attack, so-called rakes for those bendy notes. I really like to spank the strings, as you could probably hear and see. So instead of bending like this, I like to do basically picking through all the strings to get to that B string instead of this. Okay, but now I think we're pretty much running out of time here, so I want to still take a few questions from the pre submitted questions. We went through a few questions here already, and but stay around until the end, and there will be still the special announcement that I want to make for you guys. Let's take a couple quick questions here. And then I think I'll do another full Q&A session, because there was so many things that people wanted to ask, and so many good questions as well. So Victor asks, what model was your first guitar? My very first guitar was an Ibanez RG, I think I want to say 270, probably a cheaper Indonesian RG. Then I think some of the questions that are here we already kind of addressed, like how to practice your pick attack, about the Gibsons we talked about. This was a good one. When you were first learning the Megadeth catalog, did you create charts or sheet music? From Jen. Yeah, I've mostly learned the songs by ear, using a lot of this kind of analytical approach that we talked about today as well. And because first for the audition, it was pretty short amount of time that I had to learn the songs, like in a day. You would learn one song, and then the next day the other song, and make a video for that. So then I would use all the memory tools that I could. So writing down the structure of the parts, and not really writing down specific notation like tabs, because that would just take too much time at that point. So I would then, like, specific rhythms that I might not have remembered otherwise, I would just write them out in like rhythmic notation, and then like certain cues to just remember, like what part is coming next, or what sometimes I would just write, okay, slide to 10th fret or something like that, like little cues to remember. And I think I mostly did that for like the solos, just to remember like what part is coming next in the solo, in that initial state where everything was not in the backbone and memorized yet. Let's see, maybe a couple more questions, then we want to wrap this up. Let's see. A lot of good questions. About scales. Yeah, we talked a little bit about scales, my approach to figuring out the tonality. So mostly by ear, but then of course it helps if you have some practical theory, if you understand the fretboard, the symmetry of the fretboard, and so forth, and if you know like what notes might work with what other notes in the riff, for example. Let's see. Has your lead style changed since being in Megadeth? This was a good one. Well, I think, yeah, being in Megadeth has obviously shaped my playing. Before Megadeth, I had played a bunch of solos. Most of my studio work, I mean, you can find some of my playing on the Winterson albums, but mostly that's Jari, the main guy of Winterson. You can find a lot of my solos on Smackbound albums, the 2 albums that we did with the band. And if you take a deep dive into my past work, you'll find about 50 guest solos that I've done with various different projects. For example, Heavy Source, Finnish children's metal band. I've recorded a lot of solos to their albums. So if you listen to those, for example, you'll probably hear a lot of the similarities to the solos on this new album, as I think in terms of expression. I think that a lot of the expression has developed over the years, like during a longer period of time. But of course, like having to learn the Megadeth back catalog, the set list songs in detail, which that was kind of my own thing that I wanted to do, really, to really go in detail and pay homage to the previous guitarist and really internalize their style to the point where it feels like I'm not mimicking, but I can kind of channel their solos live as well. That of course has affected the way that I play as well. I've learned a lot more about their technique, their expression, and of course I knew most of the players before I joined Megadeth, not in person, but their styles. I had learned a lot of the vocabulary from Marty Friedman, a lot of the vocabulary from Kiko Loureiro, so that definitely helped in that process coming in as well. But there was some things that were not like in my backbone yet. So and now at this point I feel like I've internalized more of it. Of course there's always more to learn if you take a deeper dive, and that's something I like to do whenever I have time to sit down between the tours and rework some of the stuff. I like to really go in detail, listen to the isolated tracks, and maybe pick up a little nuance that I didn't hear before, and then try to work that into to my expression as well. So yeah, I would say playing in Megadeth has definitely reshaped some of my playing. I wouldn't say that it has changed my style, because again, if you listen to my past work, you can probably hear the characteristics of my playing already before, and of course I tried to bring that to Megadeth as well. But at the same time, I feel like my style of playing always felt like a good fit for Megadeth as well, in sense that I didn't really have to change my style really to fit Megadeth. Let's take one last question. Let's see. Okay, what inspires you in writing solos? Well, we kind of in the same topic here, but a lot of the questions were about solos, which is understandable. What inspires me writing solos? Sometimes you don't need an extra inspiration. Sometimes I feel like if the backing is cool, if you have a cool riff or interesting chord changes, that already drives you to play certain things that then seem to fit the song. Now, if there's vocal melodies that you can listen to beforehand in the song, that also helps you to go in a certain direction. But sometimes it's also nice to look into inspiration from, let's say, from another solo. Maybe it's another one of your own older solos, or maybe some other solo that you like. Bring nuances from that, maybe steal or borrow a little expression from here, and then mix that with another borrowed lick or phrasing from another, and sometimes that also then inspires you to go in a certain direction with your whether it's improvisation or more composition type of solo writing. But I guess a broader thing here is like what inspires my playing in general. There's so many things. I've always tried to stay very kind of open-minded, keep my ears and eyes open about all the possible influences in a way, like world music, movie soundtracks and scores always like inspired me in terms of like being emotional. Then of course all the great guitar heroes of the 80s, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci, these guys I grew up with. Finnish players as well, coming from Finland, Aleksi Laiho, Roope Latvala, Timo Tolkki, John Bodom, Stradivarius, even bands like Sonata Arctica, Nightwish, they were a big influence in the beginning. And Iron Maiden, one of my all-time favorites. I'm really looking forward to touring together now in August, September in the States and Canada with Iron Maiden, and then also Australia, New Zealand by the end of the year. That's going to be probably pretty amazing experience, and looking forward to seeing their shows. Iron Maiden was always a big influence for me. there's so many. In terms of guitarists, I had a very kind of serious fusion period in my life where I was all about like learning Guthrie Govan stuff, who I still regard as one of the very best guitarists of all time. So great overall control of the instrument, and so creative guy, amazing player. Greg Howe, another fusion monster, and there's so many. We could spend the whole day here talking about guitar greats. But I think we're starting to wrap up here. So don't leave right now, because this is the announcement that I wanted to make. So I talked a little bit about the teaching, and that I'm now getting back to it. I've been preparing something that I can share with you guys, and I'm now launching a platform very soon called Teemu's Guitar Lab, which will be a teaching platform. I'll be doing weekly pre-recorded lessons, so I can do them from here at my studio at home, or I can do them on the road as well in a hotel room, going through all kinds of topics that interest me and then that interest you as well. I want to make it an interactive community as well, talking about techniques, like more like general level lessons, which don't do as like microscopic approach as we, for example, did today, but then also the very kind of slow down, picking hand cameras and analyzing things like that. So there's going to be like four different levels of players, hopefully something for everybody, going through songs, talking about songwriting, improvisation, etc., etc. I'll be doing these kind of live master classes every 2 weeks from now on. And also there will be like downloadable documents, PDFs, tabs, charts, backing tracks, and so forth. So that's the idea. I have a partner that has been helping me build this platform, and we're on a good way with that. And it's coming very soon. And right now, Nick has a link there in the chat, the highlighted link. So if you want to hear more about this, you need to sign up to this emailing list, because I have a new email address. You'll be getting an email from Teemu at Teemu's Guitar Lab. So you need to sign up to that list to know all the latest information and the news about this teaching platform that I'm doing. So if you sign up to that, no charge, it's free to sign up. You just get the information, and you click the link, you sign up, you put your email address there, and then very important is that you verify the subscription. So you get an email from Teemu at teemusguitarlab.com, but you need to click that email that you get to verify the subscription. This is the only way that we can reach to you personally and get you the info about this platform that is coming. And once you've verified the subscription, then tomorrow we will send the verified subscribers a VIP early bird founders launch offer. So the launch will happen soon, and the offer will go to these first people who will now sign up, and you will get the email tomorrow. So that's the thing that we've been working behind the scenes, and I'm really excited to do more of this and make it work with all the Megadeth work that I'm doing, touring, and all the things that happen behind the scenes, and then hoping to kind of get you guys in with that world as well by teaching the stuff that happens in the Megadeth world, and also teaching, everything else that I can share about music, production, studio work, guitar setups, even things like that. Anything that you might be interested, you can always also suggest, and I can see what we can do about that. So again, sign up to that list. Free to sign up. No strings attached. You will just get the offer, and you can review the offer. Then tomorrow, the early bird offer which is a discount for those who join early as VIPs. And then if you want to join me on this platform, I'd be happy to then share all my knowledge with you and hopefully help you get better with playing and everything music. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me here. This has been a lot of fun for me. I know we went a little bit off from the original plan, what I had written here, but I hope this was interesting for you, and I hope you walk away from this with some new knowledge, some new insights, some new inspiration. And I hope to do this again with you guys. And again, sign up in the link. Make sure to verify. If you don't see the email coming back from Teemu at teemusguitarlab.com, make sure to check your spam folder. And when you find the email, make sure to verify there, and then you will get the VIP Early Birds Founders Launch offer. Cool. So again, thank you so much for being here with me, hanging out. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and hope to see you guys next time.